If you think ghosts and spirits are just myths, you might want to reconsider after hearing what happened on that cold winter night. And yes, this is a real story. Now, let's dive into the story of El Coco, an urban horror legend. This tale takes place in 1980 in a beautiful village called Los Llanos in South America, surrounded by lush greenery and vast fields. Among these fields, there was a boy named Damaso who was staying at his uncle's house during the holidays. People in the village usually went to bed early, so everyone had already eaten dinner and gone to sleep. Damaso lay in bed but couldn't fall asleep. He stared at the ceiling fan, lost in thought. Suddenly, he heard the loud cries of animals. He got up and went outside to investigate. The noise was coming from a nearby animal shelter filled with cows. As Damaso looked up at the sky, he saw it covered in dark clouds. He thought the cows might be frightened by the approaching storm, so he decided to move them to an indoor stable. With great difficulty, he began herding the cows one by one into the stable. However, he had never seen the cows so restless before. Their agitation made it even harder for him to move them. Heavy rain started to pour down, making the task even more challenging. As he managed to get some of the cows into the stable, a foul smell of rotting meat filled the air. The stench grew stronger as he moved more cows inside, and the number of cows outside decreased when only a few cows remained. Damaso noticed something horrifying: the blood-soaked bones of an old cow lying on the ground. He froze in terror and began to scream. But before he could run or do anything, he heard a distant voice. The pouring rain made the voice sound even more terrifying, and it sent shivers down Damaso's spine. He realized that the voice was the whistle of El Coco, and he knew he was in grave danger. Damaso had heard many stories about El Coco. He remembered tales from his childhood about a man who had encountered El Coco. According to the stories, the man was riding his horse through a field late at night when the horse's leg got caught in something. When the man dismounted to investigate, he found the bones of a deer with flesh still hanging from them. Before he could react, he heard a chilling whistle in the distance. He tried to lift his horse, but it was too late. He saw a large figure jumping from a nearby tree and felt a bone hit his head, causing it to bleed. The man screamed for help, but it was no use. A 19-foot-tall figure with a skeletal appearance stood before him, wearing a hat and holding a bag full of bones. The figure began to beat the man mercilessly with the bones, ignoring his pleas for mercy. The next morning, villagers found the man's lifeless body reduced to a skeleton. As Damaso stood there, paralyzed with fear, a 19-foot-tall shadow appeared before him. From the shadow emerged a figure even taller than the shadow itself, wearing a hat made of straw and with flesh hanging from its mutilated body. It was El Coco, carrying a bag dripping with blood and filled with bones. The figure approached, the sound of bones clattering growing louder with each step. Damaso's heart raced as he tried to run, but El Coco chased him, leaping from tree to tree with terrifying agility. Just as El Coco was about to attack, a dog's bark echoed through the air. El Coco hesitated, then vanished into the night. Damaso turned to see his pet dog, which had come to his rescue. He believed that if his dog hadn't been there, he would have become another victim of El Coco. From that night on, Damaso couldn't stop thinking about El Coco. He asked his relatives and neighbors about the legend, and learned even more terrifying details. They told him that El Coco was the spirit of a troubled boy who had lived in the area with his small family in the 18th century. One day, the boy asked his father to bring home deer meat for dinner. When his father returned empty-handed, the boy flew into a rage and killed him with a knife. He then chopped up his father's body and brought the remains home in a bag, claiming it was deer meat. When his mother and grandfather discovered the truth, they tied the boy to a tree and beat him until his flesh hung from his body. They then banished him from the village, cursing him to wander the area forever with a bag of his father's bones on his back, haunting the villagers and attacking anyone who ventured out alone at night. The villagers believed that El Coco feared only dogs, which is why every household kept at least one. Damaso knew that his dog had saved his life that night, and he was grateful for its protection. If you enjoyed this urban horror legend of El Coco, be sure to subscribe to our channel for more chilling tales.